It is a beautiful day here in Lexington. The warm weather is finally here. We've made it through the winter. Daylight savings. We've got longer daytime, later sunsets. But more importantly, women's NCAAs is coming next week. This is it, the big moment for women's swimming. This is the biggest meet of the year, I would say, as a big fan of the college season. And we've got a lot to talk about. We're going to talk about we're going to unveil the record pressure index in its first edition for NCAA women. We're going to look at the changes in the format and how it's going to affect both the entertainment value and the actual product itself. And then I have a little special treat at the end, just kind of talking about something that I think is kind of been on my heart lately. A little message to my athletes that I know are watching. So let's get right into it. The NCAA women's edition of the Record Pressure Index. I'm doing 3 tiers of this: a green tier, a yellow tier, and a red tier. Essentially what this is how likely a record is to fall at this coming meet. My greens are going to be swims that I think are just so much better than anyone else out there right now. I would be shocked if we saw someone break this record. Yellows are going to be ones that are a little bit more up in the air. If we got a really good swim out of somebody, we could see these come down. And then your reds are your ones that I would be betting on if I was a betting man for some NCAA records to go down. So, first edition, let's get after it. Green, we're going to have the obvious ones first. Katie Ledecky's 500, her 1,000, and her mile. These haven't been touched. I don't expect them to be touched. 4:24 in the 5, 9:06 in the 1,000, 15:03 in the mile. She is just worlds ahead of anybody else. She was at the time. She still is. Nobody has come close. Nobody will come close. Top times this year: 4:30 in the 500, a 6-second difference. 9:22 in the 1,000, and 15:32, almost a 30-second difference in the mile. Not really much else to say about it. It's not going to happen this year. I also have 3 records from Gretchen Walsh. I have her 50 freestyle, her 100 freestyle, and her 100 butterfly. 20.3 in the 50, 44.7 in the 100 free, and 46.9 in the 100 butterfly. There are some great swimmers coming after these records. Camille Spink was 20.8 at SECs this year. That's really, really fast, but 20.3 is just ludicrous, and a half second in the 50 is an eternity. So I just don't see anybody really coming close to that. Tori Husk is probably the favorite to win the 100 butterfly, but again, she's a good almost second and a half away from that record. Long course, as we've all seen, this becomes more of a conversation between Walsh and Husk, but Walsh's underwaters are just unbelievable, so she gets the nod in the short course, and I just don't expect Tori Husk to be able to compete with that record. I also have in the green tier the 100 breaststroke, the 200 breaststroke. Lily King's 55.7, next closest is 56.7 from Yefimova. That's a great time, but again, this record has been in effect since 2019. We haven't really seen anyone really compete with it all that hard. I just don't expect that to happen. 2:01.2 for Kate Douglas again. And I also have the 200 IM and the 400 IM. We have great swimmers, like Bella Sims is coming after it in the 400 IM, but they're just nowhere close to these records. More interestingly now, we get into the yellow tier, where I think we have some interesting conversations. I have 2 events here. We only have 4 events left. That's how fast I think a lot of these records have been the last few years. And first, let's talk about the 200 fly. This is a 149.1 from Emma Stickland at last year's NCAA meet. We have 2 swimmers who are close and competitive. Hannah Bellard is 150.3. Campbell Stoll is 150.6. Again, the record is 149.1. This is one of those situations where you have 2 swimmers who haven't seen each other all year. They're rested up. They're fired up. Both of their teams need big swims in this event. Texas is trying to compete, trying to get into that top 4-ish conversation. Michigan, similar. They're both going to need big points out of this. They're both going to be fired up. They both obviously have been circling this race the whole season, trying to win this national title. I think that possibly that amount of pressure and that amount of excitement could lead to a blow-up swim from someone like Bellard, who could go 149 low and scare this record. I think it's unlikely. I think it's the less likely of the 2 yellow tiered records, but I don't think it's so much of a green that we can automatically discount that as a possibility. So I would be looking at the 200 fly. I would not miss this event if I was a swim fan. I would be making sure that I catch this and catch this time. The other swim in this tier, I'm going to have the 200 freestyle. Missy Franklin's 2015 record of 139.1. It recently turned 10 at last year's NCAAs. It is one of the oldest standing records that we have. I think it is the oldest, not including Katie Ledecky's records. But we have 3 swimmers here who are within a second and a half or so of it. Anna Mosh of Virginia is 139.7. Minna Abraham of USC is 140.4, and Liberty Clark of IU is 140.8. Again, the record is 139.10. I think, once again, you have 3 swimmers from 3 different conferences. They haven't raced each other yet. They've all got big aspirations of winning this meet. They're all on teams that are going to need these big points to reach their goals of their team standings. There's going to be a lot riding on this race for all 3 of these swimmers. And I think all 3 of these swimmers still have a bit of untapped potential from maybe some easier conference wins in comparison to how tight this race is about to be. Plus, you add in the atmosphere of being in that moment and the crowd. I think we have a really good shot of seeing that record go down. It's going to be tough. It would be a bit of a surprise, but I think that is a very real possibility. And that leaves us with the 2 red tier events, which is both the backstroke events, the 100 backstroke and the 200 backstroke. We will start with the 100 backstroke. This is a Gretchen Walsh record, 48.10 2 years ago at this meet. This is one of those records. It's not quite at the level of her 50, 100 free, and 100 fly. I would say that this is kind of comparable to those Dressel records that he kind of just set just to set. And we knew that they would probably eventually be broken, say like his 200 IM record. And I would put that in this category, 48.1. She is a backstroker, so this was very fast, and it was crazy at the time. But I wouldn't quite put it in that tier of like the 50 free with the 20.3, where we just were like, I don't think anybody's going to touch this for years. But yeah, Claire Curzan is within 0.3 of this. She was 48.38 at ACC's last month. I think this is going to come down to what kind of Virginia we see at this meet. Obviously, Virginia has dominated this meet. They've won it 5 years in a row. They're going for that 6-peat this year. But there have been years where we saw faster times at ACCs from Virginia, and then they went to NCAAs and went a little bit slower. Specifically, Walsh has done that in a couple of events. It's not at all trying to say that they don't perform at NCAAs. Obviously, they do. They get their hand on the wall first. And at the end of the day, at that meet, that is all that matters, because it's all about winning that trophy, and that's what they've done. But in terms of the record index, it is going to be interesting to see, especially because she broke the record in the 200 backstroke, that was this the peak of the times for Claire Curzan, or was this kind of a ramp up into an even bigger NCAAs? And that kind of transitions into the other red tier, obviously the 200 backstroke. Claire beat this record a month ago with 146.09. I think if this record is going to go, I think the 100 is going to come with it. I think if she's hot and hot enough to go faster in the 200 back than she went last month, then she's probably going to be faster in the 100 back as well, and that would mean breaking that record or getting very, very close to it. I think that it's all going to come down to what was Claire's plan with ACCs compared to NCAAs. I would assume that the plan was to ramp up and to get faster at NCAAs, but you also have to include that in a 100 back, there's not a lot of room for error. We could see one mistake, and she'll still win, but she won't be able to go 48.1 because that is an insane time. Looking on to the format and the big changes, we had 2 big changes that I think are going to be noticeable for fans and for athletes. The first being the elimination of the B final. And there's 2 different rows that you can go down with this. One is kind of the emotional or the feelings of the athletes who are no longer going to have those night swims, because we are only getting championship finals this year. Every night swim that we get is going to be for a national championship. And this has been a podcast that has been very on the side of the athlete, especially with myself being a former athlete. But I am actually going to take the stance in support of the NCAA's decision on this. I think that this was the right move. And I think that it was a long time coming. And I think if you had asked me a year ago what I felt, I wouldn't have said that. But I got a new perspective watching NCAA's last year. And what I can say is there was definitely this wave of how the emotion of the meet ran. And what I mean by that is these swims, I mean, these are the swims for the year. These are the moments that these guys have had circled for months and that they've been training for. And you can feel that through the TV screen when you watch this meet. You can feel that sense of pressure, that sense of excitement. You can feel it from their teammates going crazy. You can feel it in the stands. And when you watch these A finals, they're electric. A lot of those races were very close. A lot of them went different ways than we expected, and it was really, really fun to watch. But the problem is you would get these gaps, these long gaps where if I wasn't a swim fan, if I wasn't a former athlete myself, I'm flipping the channel. I'm going on to the next thing. I'm finding whatever else is on. Part of that problem was the B finals. And another part of it was the trophy ceremonies that would take so long. So getting rid of these B finals, I think, is going to substantially shorten the night sessions, which I think is good for the athlete as well. I think it gets them back to the hotel quicker, get to bed, get ready for the next morning's prelim sessions. I also think it's going to help the fan and the spectator who's watching on TV if you flip through it, because that's the goal for swimming. You want to be a college sport that, you know, you're not going to be getting college football playoff numbers at NCAA's. That's just unrealistic. But if you can make your product viewable enough for someone channel surfing on a random Thursday night and they come across women's NCAA's and maybe you're 20 minutes in and they watch this great race and they're like, man, there's only 40 minutes left of this. Like, I'll keep watching. That is the kind of thing that you can create. But I think that getting rid of B finals was a necessary evil for that. And I think it is sad, especially for people whose whole goal was to make those B finals and get that experience of swimming at night. But I also think it makes it more exclusive to be able to swim at night, which makes it an even bigger deal and even more of an honor, and the energy level will be even better. So the people that still get to swim at night are going to have a better experience. Then there's the other branch of it of how will this actually affect the standings of the meet. So what we did, I reached out to my numbers guy. He put a spreadsheet together for me, and we looked at 2025's results, and then we put in the new rules with the B finals, and we compared and we looked at the changes, and it went about how I expected. You have not a lot of change in the top 10. Last year's top 10: UVA, Stanford, Texas, Indiana, Tennessee, UF, Louisville, Cal, Michigan, NC State is your top 10. With the new changes and the B final, we have UVA, Stanford, Texas, IU, Tennessee, Florida, Cal, U of L, Michigan, NC State. We had one change, and it was two teams swapping. Cal goes from 8th to 7th, U of L goes from 7th to 8th. This is Cal gaining 6 points, U of L losing, 4 points. So Cal now has 208.5, U of L has 205. That is the only change that we see in the top 10. But where we do see a lot of change is from the 10 to 20 range. This is where we get a lot more tightness and a lot more competitiveness between these places, and where those B final jumps from getting 2 points to getting 8 points means a lot. And this is where we saw the biggest changes. This is also where you have more B finalists. A lot of these schools have more swimmers in the B final than in the A final, and this is where a lot of their points are coming from. So this 14 through 19 range is where we saw the biggest changes. 14 through 19 at this meet last year was OSU, Bama, Georgia, UNC, Purdue, ASU. Under the new rules, it becomes Bama, OSU, Purdue, Georgia, ASU, and UNC. That's Bama jumping up a spot, that's OSU going down a spot, Purdue going up 2 spots, Georgia going down a spot, ASU going up a spot, and UNC dropping 2 spots. So if I were one of these programs in the mid-teens, I would expect some changes in the strategies. I would expect, if you weren't already putting a lot of emphasis on those morning swims, that would now be the Super Bowl. If I were a team in the 20 to 10 range, these morning swims are the most important thing for you now. The A finals are the cherry on top. Like Like if you're a UVA, a Stanford, a Texas, those A finals are really important because you just have to outscore your opponent who's also going to be in the A final. If you're in the 10 through 20 range, I would hype up these mornings like crazy. I know they already are hyped up. I know that any good program already emphasizes winning the morning. But if it wasn't already important to you to be the best team in the morning, these new changes make that even more important now. And it'll be interesting to see, even in the long term, like what programs do to try and counter this and how to affect this. Maybe they do more stand-up sets or more sprint sets in the morning to teach these guys and condition them to be able to get up early and put in top speed effort. But you also get a couple pockets in the 26 through 30 range. Minnesota jumps up 2 spots from 28 to 26. Texas A&M drops 2 spots, 26 to 28. Obviously, like in the bottom 30s, you get some changes because some of them, these are their only swimmers that they have. So if they had a better B final, that gained them 4 points or so, and that's part of their like 10 points total, and they lose that, that's obviously going to change a lot. But this 10 to 20 range, I think, is where we're going to see the biggest change and the biggest change in philosophy for these programs. Maybe not in terms of now making the morning important, because the morning is always important, but maybe even changing their coaching philosophies throughout the season to try and prepare these guys and these girls for bigger morning swims. The other big change is the order of events now. We've seen a lot of order of event changes. SEC's changed their order of events. A lot of conferences changed them. And now we're getting it in the NCAA. This is a big change in the NCAA's priorities, because the old format used to really focus on swimmers first and putting together a lineup that really benefits the swimmer in the way that the meet is paced and the way that the events are spaced out. This seems like it's way more cut for TV. And once again, I think that that's a great idea. I think that in the state of college athletics right now, swimming is at a real big threat of being left out and of being just eliminated, of not existing in the next 5 years. So I think that doing anything you can to make this game more approachable for the fan is a good idea. One example is they moved the mile off of day 4 and put it into day 1 on the very beginning. You're doing your top 8 seeds, the first night session. I like this. I think the 1650 is kind of a difficult thing for swimming to kind of handle. Same thing with the 1,000 and dual meets. It just, regardless of what you think of distance swimming, I love distance swimming, but it's just a hard thing to market, and it's a hard thing to get viewers to watch because it's so long. And because a lot of people aren't as tuned in on the times and what it really means to put up a 14:30, a 14:29 in the mile. It just looks like people just swimming at half speed just the whole race. And obviously that's not what it is, but that's just the way it looks. So I think getting this out of the way in terms of TV time and viewership is probably the best thing to do. And then you follow it up with the 2 medley and the 800 freestyle relay, just like we had in day 1 in the past. So I think that really, people are going to want to watch those relays anyways, so I think that works out well. And then you look at day 2 through 4. I'm not going to go through every event, but what it looks like is, if you've ever been to a concert, what you'll notice is a lot of these artists will put hits at the very beginning of a concert, and then they'll put a little bit more of their deep cuts in the middle, and then they'll finish out with more of their hits, and they'll usually save their best songs for the very end, maybe at the end of the encore even. That looks to be what we're doing with this order of events as well, which makes sense. You want to get people to tune in early, and then you want them to have a reason to stay through the rest of the session. So day 2, we start with the 100 butterfly. That's an exciting one. And then we end with the 100 breaststroke and the 200 freestyle relay. So they're kind of packing the hundreds and the shorter events and the relays at the beginning and at the end, and they're kind of stuffing the 400s and the 200s and the 500s in the middle. Day 3, they start with the 100 backstroke and then end with the 50 freestyle and the 400 medley relay. Day 4, they start with the 200 individual medley and the 100 freestyle, and then they end with the 400 freestyle relay. I think that this is a great idea. I'm excited to see how the ratings change and how this affects something like that. I think that It's interesting. They also decided to change the diving. They would split every diving event into rounds 1 through 3 and rounds 4 through 6, with the later rounds obviously happening towards the end of the days. I'm interested to see how that affects it. Maybe it'll make it less of a block and less of just such a long stretch of diving. But I think that this is a good change. I don't think it's the change, but I think that we're making steps in the right direction. And I'm excited to see how the entertainment value changes with this meet. So those are the things that I'm really excited about with NCAA's. I didn't really want to do like a team preview. I mean, for one, we all know Virginia's going to win the meet anyways, and I think that that's just kind of white noise. I think these are the really interesting things when you kind of zoom out and look at the big picture of college athletics and college swimming and where it's at. But there is one thing that I wanted to talk about. It was kind of something that I've been thinking about the last couple weeks, especially with the time of year that we're in for swimming. I know a lot of athletes watch, a lot of people that are close friends of mine, and we're kind of getting to a time of the year where a lot of people are retiring and a lot of people's careers are ending. And I know a lot of people personally whose careers didn't end the way that they wanted it to. They didn't have a great ending, and they're upset about it and they're sad about it, and I understand that. And I kind of just wanted to talk about how I feel about that. My personal experience in high school was that I had about as perfect an ending that you could ask for to my high school career. I got faster every year in every event that I swam. I was undefeated my senior year in the 50 freestyle all the way through to states. I won states. I broke our school record. Our school had a record, a history of dominance in the 70s and 80s that had largely gone away, and we brought it back, winning team titles again. It was kind of that perfect riding off into the sunset feeling. And I always look back on my high school career fondly, and I thought that part of that was because of that ending and because of how well everything closed out. And that was true. That was a very rosy, very nice ending, and it did make it even fonder to look back on those memories. But then my college career ended, and it was the complete opposite. It was about as poor an ending as you could ask for. I was dealing with a shoulder injury that had plagued me the last year and a half. It had really hurt me in my attempts to drop time. I had dropped here and there, but it wasn't quite as consistent as it had been the last 5 years before that, towards the end of my high school career and beginning of my college career. And I was a victim of the SEC roster changes and the cuts that followed that. And I was cut while on vacation over a phone call. And just like that, my career was over. So if you want to talk about a bad ending, I didn't get a medal at my last race. I didn't even know when my last race was coming. I didn't even get a face-to-face conversation with the staff to let me know that it was over. And I was crushed over it for a while, and it really, really stung losing out on my senior year. And it was something that really affected the way that I look back on my memories in college swimming. And I was rightfully sad for a long time. But I think the important thing is that when I look back on it now, there's so many things that I look back on fondly, that I think about, that I remember. There's so many relationships and friendships that I have that I never would have had otherwise. And to be honest, the ending is just not something that I think about now that I'm almost a year to the day that it happened. The ending is kind of irrelevant. I still have a good relationship with the staff. When I see them around, I still have a good relationship with a lot of the members of the team. I'm still roommates with my teammates at the time. And so a lot of people are going to get poor endings to this sport. You're not going to make NCAAs, or you're not going to win that medal that you wanted to win, or you didn't quite get that record. And I experienced all that. I had goals of records that I wanted to break at UK. I had goals of meets that I wanted to qualify for that I didn't. But that's kind of the beauty of the sport, is you don't get to break your records every time. You don't get to PR every time. You don't get to win the medal every time. And it's made me look really fondly on the times that I did do that and the things that I did get to do. And even more importantly, I'm so fond of the memories outside of the pool that I got from swimming, from the hotels, from the meals to everything like that, that to be honest, I don't even really think about my times. I have a hard time remembering any of my PRs at this point because all my memories about swimming are just about the people and the moments, and what was truly important about it was the people and the memories and the laughs and the inside jokes. So if you had a bad ending to your season this year, if you had a bad ending to your career, my advice to you would be to feel that you have a right to be upset or disappointed in how it ended. But please don't let it affect the long-term memory of the sport for you and the long-term memory of the people that you got to meet along the way. And with that, I'm going to call it a relatively short episode today. We will check in again next week. Hopefully, I was not proven wrong by any of the record pressure indexes. We can look at the standings. Who is going to win the national championship? Big mystery there. But other than that, I think we're just about wrapped up today. So I will see you all later.